Hi, this is Chris, the chap in the cap from Motolegends, here today to talk to you about a new helmet. Now, I'm not going to bore you to death with all the details of the helmet, what it's made of, how it works and so on, because the new helmet, even though it's a significant step forward in our view, is but a modification of a helmet that we already know and love. So let's go over to the other side of the shop and we'll talk it through. So, way back in the annals of time, somebody in France invented a very clever style of helmet. Basically, the chin bar could be pulled over the back of the helmet, over the brow, sit on the back, so that you had the best of both worlds. When you pulled it down, you had the security of a full-face helmet. When you put it around the back, you had a proper open-face helmet. And in that respect, it was a clever design. It was a more versatile design than a traditional flip lid. Flip lids we love here at Motolegends, we love our Schuberts, we love our Shoeies, but they have a flaw in that they were not designed really for riding in the open face configuration. They are designed for opening up to talk to people, maybe getting a little bit of air in when you're doing 20 miles an hour, but you wouldn't ride a flip lid with the flip open because basically you've got a barn door up there. So the new concept was very clever. Now, I don't know who invented it. It would either have been Roof or Shark. This is not a history lesson, so I'm not sure exactly who it was, but I'm sure somebody very soon will leave a comment down beneath this video telling us exactly who it was, where and when. So the Roof helmet is this one. Of the two helmets, because both helmets still exist, the Shark and the Roof, this is the funky version. It channels your inner Tom Cruise on Top Gun. It has a very kind of aggressive street fighter look. It is a very funky lid. Mechanism is pretty simple, although much simpler on this latest version than it was in some of the earlier versions. So when you pull it back, it sits behind there. Not, it's got to be said, the most sophisticated helmet on the market. We see this as a helmet that was more about urban riding, so around town, slow speeds. You could go out of town if you were picking up speed out of town, you could bring the chin bar down, but actually out of town, because of the nature of the helmet, it's a little bit noisy. So it's not the kind of helmet you're going to normally tour in. It is more about in town than out of town. It's also, we've got to say, it's got a slightly strange fit. It doesn't work on everyone. It's got a very round fit this way. It's got a very round fit this way. If it fits you, it's great, but it's, if I were to call it a toy, that would be cruel. A lot of people have worn these helmets and done a lot of touring in them, but it is not the final word in sophistication and quiet. This helmet is the Shark. Now, having said this is not a history lesson, I want to tell you a bit of a story about this helmet. I want to go back to its initial inception. The first helmet was known as the Evo line. Now, there was then an Evo line 2, and following that there was an Evo line 3. This was kind of before our time, but I'm assuming that every time they gave it a new model description, there were some kind of development, some evolution that made it a better lid. But then somebody in all their wisdom thought, wouldn't it be nice if, when you lift this over, it didn't conflict with the visor, and that came up automatically. Because apparently that had been a problem. It was ruining the quality of some motorcyclists' lives, that when they brought that over, they had to lift the visor first. In truth, doesn't seem like an amazing issue to us now, but obviously Shark felt that there was a way of making this a more sophisticated helmet. And indeed, that's what this helmet is. This is a helmet that is called the Evo One. And when, the main point is this, when you lift this up, a set of cams and levers lifts the visor so that it clears, so that as you bring the chin lid round, it clears the visor. It was very clever. And I well remember all the noise when it was launched. We were given presentations about how it was designed with computer flow dynamics, how it was reverse engineered. The tolerances were far better than they were on the Evo line. And indeed, we could see some of that. I remember on the Evo line, the gap here, once you had the visor open, it was like an 1.5 inch gap. It was a much more finely engineered helmet with better tolerances. But there was a problem with this helmet. It didn't work. The tolerances were too tight and they had all kinds of issues. It probably came onto the market, in truth, a bit like the Schubert C4. It came onto the market before it was properly tested. There were a number of problems. Shark had to issue a set of instructions shortly after the helmet was released telling you how you had to close the flip. Now, if somebody has to tell you how to close the chin bar on a helmet, it's not working. It should be instinctive, it should be intuitive. It wasn't. We could tell that there was a problem. There were also issues as you pulled the chin bar up, it got caught. So there was a lot going on in the mechanics here, and it was clear that it just wasn't as smooth as it should have been, as Shark would have wanted it to be. The main issue, however, was that the tolerances, whilst they were great, they were so fine that the Pinlock was rubbing against the rubber trim at the top of the helmet. So fairly soon after the helmet was launched, we had people coming in saying, I've got these weird scratch marks across my Pinlock, and it became clear that because the Pinlock sat inside the visor, and sometimes a Pinlock can work itself loose if it's expanded and contracted, so it's not always super tight. It could scratch here, and that line of marks was right in the line of sight. So that was not perfect. And in fact, a lot of people ended up bringing their helmets back. Shark had some fixes for it, but it was a problem. Now, sometime later, in fact, I think only 9 months or so, certainly less than a year after the Evo One was released, they brought out a new helmet that they called the Evo One 2. And that was a better helmet. They had solved a number of the issues. We haven't, in truth, since that helmet was released, had many problems here in terms of the visor. It works properly. The Pinlock is also better, but we still have people who come in who are still getting scratches on their Pinlock. They've had an Evo One, they've now got an Evo One 2, and the problem hasn't gone away. Well, recently, although I've got to say somewhat under the radar in my view, Shark have released a new helmet that they call the Evo ES. And this is that helmet. So in terms of concept, it's the same. In fact, it's the same shell. In many ways, it's an almost identical helmet. But this helmet, the main difference between this helmet and the Evo One and the Evo One 2 is that it does not have a Pinlock visor at all. It has a high grade 1 optical quality visor called a VZ150. Sean has explained to me, because he understands these things, that it's got this special coating that fills in all of the holes in the visor, giving you totally distortion-free vision, but that also stops the water from condensation being absorbed into the visors. So this is a very high quality anti-fog visor. What we've learnt, or what we've been told, is that actually the clever engineers who first created this helmet never wanted a Pinlock in the visor at all. It was the nasty people in the marketing department that said, the market expects a Pinlock visor. You cannot sell a premium quality helmet without a Pinlock visor. We've got to put one on. Well, according to the stories that we're now being fed, this helmet is the helmet that the Evo One should always have been. A high quality anti-fog, anti-scratch visor that does not need a Pinlock at all. Now, we've ridden in this helmet. It's January right now when we're recording this, January 2020. It's been pretty cold. There's been a lot of rain. We've ridden this in pretty harsh conditions, and I've got to say, it's very good. In extremis, if you try hard enough, if you put a buff here, if you breathe heavily, you can create some condensation on the inside of the helmet, but it doesn't fog up in the way that it does on most visors without a Pinlock visor. You get some water, but it kind of runs off. It is pretty good. But I think our view really is that if this is not, I think the answer is, if it does fog up, you can just click the visor open for a minute or two, it's going to clear it. And really, if that is not a good enough solution for you, you need to go out and buy a car. Buy a car with a demisting function on the dashboard. You will never again have a cloudy screen. So this, I think, as a package is much better. There aren't going to be any problems with the visor. It all moves smoothly. The visor is not going to catch. It is a very good anti-fog visor, but if you really pushed it, if you really tried hard, I think you could get some misting on the inside, but I don't think that that's going to be a major issue. Now, the good news with this is that even though in our view this is a better version, Shark have lowered the price. And they've lowered the price, I suppose, partly because they've not had to pay out for a Pinlock visor. I don't know how much this visor is to make, but clearly there's been some savings there. They've also cut out some of the bling. Before there was some chrome work here, there was some chrome work where the drop-down visor slider goes. There was some chrome work on the side. To tell the truth, it was bling, it didn't serve a purpose. But what's happened is by removing that, they've managed to lower the price. So this is one of those stories, and we very rarely come across them, where the price has gone down and the functionality or the quality has gone up. So as an example, you'll need to go to the website to see, because there are lots of different versions of this, lots of different colorways, and they're all priced differently. But if we took a plain white version of this, the Evo One 2, which is currently in the market, is priced at £350. This in white is £270. So I think there's nothing really to argue about. It's a better lid, it's cheaper. What more could you ask for? We think this is the helmet that the Evo One should have been when it first came out. We think it's now a cracking package. Okay, so that was the Shark Evo ES. If you would like to look at other modular helmets, visit the website motolegends.com. If you want to know more details about this particular helmet, then if you click on the button top right, that will take you directly to the relevant page on our website. You can check out all the colors, the spec, the availability, and so on. Of course, if you really like the helmet, you can order one there and there. Now, when you buy from Motolegends, we try to make the process as simple, straightforward, and risk-free as we possibly can. There's no P&P on anything that you buy from us. Similarly, if once you receive something, you decide that you don't like it, it doesn't fit, it's not what you thought it was, then you can return it to us, again at our cost. And we give you a full 12 months to return goods to us. We're not expecting you to go out, ride around in a helmet like this for 6 months, send it back and say, no, I changed my mind. What we're doing is just trying to take all the pressure off you. If you're busy when we send the helmet out to you, you've got other things on, no problem, send it back when you're good and ready. Now, the other thing we have is an unbeatable price promise. John Lewis is really well known for its never knowingly undersold. They will match other people's prices. We go one better. If a competitor of ours in the UK sells anything that we're selling for less than our price, we will beat their price by a full 10%. So let's say we have a helmet for £400. If you find someone selling that helmet for £350, we will sell that helmet to you for £315. We will always be the cheapest on anything we sell. You have up to a fortnight after you buy something from us to effect that price beat guarantee. You just send us an email, tell us where you found it, and we will credit your card. Or of course, you're going to have done your homework before you come in or before you phone us. Tell us where you found it, and we will do the price beat when you first buy the item. There are a few terms and conditions, and I think you should visit the website to check those out. They're not at all onerous, but best to do that, I think. One point I would make, if you're price matching us against a company that's not in the UK but is in Europe, then we will match that price, including their P&P. We won't beat it. But to tell the truth, given the issues that you would have if you needed to return a helmet, the cost that would be incurred if you returned a helmet to a German, Italian or French supplier, if there was a problem with it, you'd pretty much be foolish not to take up that same product in the UK if you could get it at the same price. Anyway, if in future you would like to receive information from us about new products, then you should maybe sign up to our email bulletins. If you go to the top of the front page of the website, there's a piece of script there that says newsletter sign up. Click on that. Seconds later, you'll be signed up. You'll get bulletins from us in future. If by contrast, you prefer to get your information videographically, in other words, in this form, we would be simply delighted if you wanted to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you can do that by clicking on the on the button, on the subscribe button down below. Finally, I'd just like to say a couple of words about our shop. We have a shop based here in Guildford, in Surrey, on the edges of Guildford. It's a small looking shop. You might have seen a few shots of it as we were doing this video, but it's attached to a warehouse, a 3-story warehouse that has £2 million worth of merchandise in it. It is therefore technically the second largest shop in the country. So if you're looking for a helmet like this, any helmet, gloves, boots, whatever it is, you stand a better chance of finding the item you want, in the colour you want, in the size you want, here than you will anywhere else in the country. Pretty much anywhere else in the country. Anyway, this has been Chris at Motolegends. I hope to talk to you again soon.